We developed a flowchart of implementing the Common Core, and it's really a flowchart for planning for the implementation. This was done a couple years ago when we first started thinking about how can we support our districts. We have the fortunate benefit of having people on our staff that are veteran administrators from various school districts, so they're very, very aware of the multiple steps it takes to do any type of change. And when you're trying to do a change that is not only affecting, one area or another, but every single thing you do in a school district, from the materials you're using to how you do PD to how you monitor instruction, it really requires an inordinate amount of planning and understanding the organizational change theory. So the chart that we have is pretty extensive, so it's going to be difficult to make reference to particular boxes, but I sort of broke it out into three. If you look at the entire chart, there's a left side that talks more about the communication aspect that I mentioned was very important, and even the data and the research part. The right side of the chart is much more focused on instruction. And so if you look at the very top of the chart, if you break it into three levels, for example, the top level is about really working on developing a common understanding of what the standards are in your district, what are the implications, and that's for all educators but also the community. So everybody knows where you are moving and why. The middle talks about, it's sort of on understanding the implications. It's the self-reflection I mentioned. At that point you need to look at your own standards. And these are the state standards, but what have you been doing and looking at the materials, and you need to figure out, are we way off the Common Core? Are we pretty close? Are we way off in math, but we're actually pretty close in English Language Arts? I think it's helpful for people to see the gaps. It makes the job feel maybe less daunting because now you know, okay, everything isn't off. Or if a lot of the things are off, it also gives you a pathway to say, okay, we are going to prioritize what we are going to do. And that's the bottom level. At that point then, once you know what are the gaps, then you need to come around and decide, okay, what is the criteria we will use to start closing the gaps? What does it mean for instruction? Which then, what does it mean for PD? What does it mean in terms of instructional materials? Do we chuck everything? Do we get rid of all our materials that we just adopted last year? Or do we supplement? And if we supplement, how do we do that? Vendors right now are appearing everywhere with aligned materials to the Common Core. Well, some might be, but some might not be. And so this is where there has to be that careful consideration and not just jump very quickly onto something if you're not sure it's going to really address the gaps that you in your district have.